Mdamon can be configured to run under different architectures. It can be configured to retrieve mail from an ISP's mail server using DomainPOP. It can be configured as an independent mail server, or it can be used as a domain gateway or backup server. Let's first discuss retrieving mail from an ISP using DomainPOP. In this example, the domain registered is company.com. The MX record for this domain points to the mail server of the Internet Service Provider. A common mailbox is defined on the provider's mail server for all mail destined for the domain company.com. For each account of the domain, an alias of the common mailbox is created. For example, we have John, Linda, and George. Any mail sent to any one of these accounts ends up in the mailbox common mailbox at company.com. The local domain, which can be different from the registered domain company.mail, has been configured within the LAN on Mdamon. In the local domain, the following accounts are configured: John, Linda, and George. When a DomainPOP collection is scheduled, Mdamon connects to the provider's mail server using the POP protocol and downloads the mail contained in the common mailbox. At this point, Mdamon parses the headers of each email downloaded for one or more email addresses. It then compares them with the addresses of the accounts defined in Mdamon, and when it finds a match, it routes the mail into the user's mailbox. For example, if the parser finds in the header of a downloaded email the address john@company.com, it saves a copy in John's mailbox on the Mdamon server. At this point, the local mail clients can connect to Mdamon to retrieve their mail. The emails sent by a local user to another local user are sorted inside Mdamon, while emails directed to remote users are sent to the remote queue and then sent out to the ISP. The ISP's server will then proceed to resolve the recipient's domain and then send the mail. We now move on to the most common architecture under which Mdamon can be run. Under this setup, Mdamon acts as an independent mail server. This is the most common configuration of Mdamon as well as being the simplest. In this setup, Mdamon is installed on a machine that is always connected to the Internet. The address of this machine can be public or private. If the machine is behind a firewall, make sure that the Mdamon services, POP, IMAP, SMTP, and World Client are accessible through the Internet. A domain is configured in Mdamon. In our example, we'll use company.com. For this domain, we've configured the following three accounts: John, Linda, and George. The DNS points directly to the Mdamon machine. In other words, if queried for an MX record, the DNS provider of the domain company.com will return the IP address where Mdamon resides. If an email is sent to an account of the domain company.com, the sender's mail server will connect to the machine on which Mdamon runs and deliver the messages to it. The mail client can then connect to Mdamon using the POP, IMAP, or ActiveSync protocol and download the messages. To send email, the email client connects to Mdamon. Mdamon then resolves the recipient's domain, connects to the respective mail server, and delivers the message. We will now discuss running Mdamon as a gateway. In this configuration, a container called Domain Gateway is created on the Mdamon server, and a domain name is assigned to it. In this example, we will use company.com. The DNS MX record points to Mdamon as the mail server for the domain company.com. The gateway accepts emails for any account with the domain company.com and saves them in the container, which is nothing more than an Mdamon folder. There are various ways in which the emails saved in the gateway can be picked up or delivered to another server. The easiest way is for Mdamon to forward them to the other server. Alternatively, another server can indicate to Mdamon using the ETRN or ATRN commands when it wishes to receive the emails, and then Mdamon sends them to it. Or the remote server can pick up the messages using POP or IMAP. Finally, Mdamon can act as a backup server to a primary mail server. The domain company.com is managed by mail server A. Two MX records are configured for the domain company.com. The first MX record with a priority of 10 points to mail server A. The second, with a priority of 20, points to the Mdamon mail server. On this server, a domain gateway for the domain company.com has been created. Whenever someone wishes to send a message to an account of the domain company.com, the sender's mail server will query the DNS records, receiving in reply the address of mail server A with higher priority and that of the Mdamon mail server. The remote mail server will attempt to connect to mail server A. If the mail server can be reached, the message is successfully sent to this server. If, on the other hand, the mail server is unreachable, the remote mail server will attempt to connect to the mail server on which Mdamon is running. The messages will be delivered to Mdamon and deposited into the collector mailbox matching the domain gateway currently enabled. At this stage, Mdamon will periodically attempt to forward the messages to mail server A. These forwarding operations will continue to fail until mail server A can be reached. At this point, all of the emails stored in the gateway mailbox in Mdamon can be forwarded to mail server A. Alternatively, mail server A can be configured to retrieve the messages using other methods such as ETRN, ATRN, DomainPOP, or POP. This configuration can also act as a partial backup, safeguarding against the loss of mail sent to company.com.